Yes, Finnish Football Show, back. Thanks for joining me, Mark Wiltshire from Explore Finland, Mark from FC Suomi, and Rich from Escape to Suomi.
Hello.
Hello.
You're joining us this morning. We're recording this on Sunday, the 4th of June, and it's the morning after, the afternoon after for some of us, yet another attack in London. So just our thoughts with friends and family back home in the UK and especially in London. And also to the emergency services that are hard at work over there, keeping us safe. Pretty close to home for you again, Rich, but good that you can still join us today.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that unfortunately seems to be becoming more common. But yeah, hopefully this is the last one for a while. It's not never nice to wake up to this.
Yeah, I think we echo those. How about time for our first clunky gear change of the day? Then let's get back on track with the nonsense that is the Finnish Football Show. Rich, what shirt are you wearing today?
This time I'm sporting the new PS Kemi home shirt from Stano. Very much a return to form after last year. I had some good discussions with the club, and yeah, they very nicely sent me a shirt over with my choice of ludicrous number on the back. But yeah, and it was covered in sponsors as well, which is always nice. But yeah, this was one that we pointed out at the start of the season. So
give it a whirl. I want to see the squad.
I'll see if I can. Don't have phones.
97. Oh dear.
Is that the year you were born, Rich? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 20 again. I think I turned 20 for the 18th time this year. So.
I was thinking 1887.
Yes, well, so the grey hair's coming through on the video.
Yeah, my daughter very kindly pointed out yesterday that I had 1 or 2 white hairs in my beard before going home and telling her brother, "Dad's got a grey beard." I feel your pain. This episode, as normal, is going out live on YouTube. So if anyone's joining us live, thank you for being there. This is FFS 15. We're going to get up to date with the Veikkausliiga season. Some of the teams are now 1/3 of the way through the season, so we'll look at how things are panning out for them so far. We'll also talk about Finland's 2 upcoming internationals, a World Cup qualifier against Ukraine and a friendly against Liechtenstein. And we thought we'd talk about some of the Finnish international players that are playing overseas and maybe some that need a move. Yeah, so
the development squad's in.
Oh, that looks like Lumi's joined us.
Yeah, the morale booster is here. Thought she'd make some contributions.
Lumi's becoming a regular feature on the Finnish football.
She's got a Adidas football top on today. So
she has. She seems to be dressed in Arsenal red and white. Rich.
Well, you know, we've got to celebrate a rare triumph.
So anyone watching or listening, we want your input as normal. So live viewers can use the message box on the right hand side of the screen. Podcast listeners can use social media to get in touch with any feedback. There's also the Facebook group, Finnish Football Show Facebook group. It's a closed group, but we're very inclusive. So if you want to join us, then find us on Facebook and ask, and we'll let you in as long as you agree to play nicely and not be too negative about whoever happens to be managing SJK this week. On Twitter, our handles are at FC Suomi, at Escape to Suomi, and at Explore Finland. So, as normal, hold on a minute.
What?
Did I hear a noise there? I was just about to say no noisy biscuits, and it sounded like somebody was getting stuck into an apple or something.
Huh?
Maybe I'm hearing things. Maybe it's my computer.
I think you're hearing
my biscuits.
Okay, in that case, no noisy biscuits, Rich. No F-bombs. And let's start with some recent news. Mark, you mentioned the story about Lukas Radetzky over there in Germany. What's been going on?
So Lucas had a great season, particularly if you look sort of year on year. So this time last year, he was keeping out, I can't remember who they played, but he was keeping Frankfurt in the league because of the Bundesliga relegation playoffs. So I think he managed to, they won 1-0 at home and drew 0-0 away, and Luca had a bit of a stormer. This season, they climbed up to about third around Christmas and then sort of dropped off and ended up in mid-table. But he's widely regarded to be now one of the best keepers in the Bundesliga. People are talking about him going to places like Bayern Munich as cover for Manuel Neuer, and that there's a whole raft of top clubs interested in his signature, which is all absolutely brilliant news. But last week, it was the German Cup final, where Frankfurt played Borussia Dortmund. And the day before the Cup final, his dad/agent hit the press and the media saying, Luke is the backbone of the team. He's basically carrying everybody forward. He needs a new contract or a big move. And it's fine for an agent or dad or dad/agent to kind of promote your player or your kid. And it's fine to kind of give him the morale boost. And in many ways, he's absolutely right. But the fact that it came before the German Cup final is a bit of a problem for negotiations, because in the German Cup final, Hradecky goes into it under just a little bit more pressure than he would have been under normally, and he makes a mistake that concedes the penalty that gives Dortmund the win in the final. So Lucas had a great season. It ended in disappointment because of the cup final, but I think also unnecessarily he's been put under additional pressure and strain by an agent or a manager that is obviously looking out for his best interests, but just doesn't have that sort of timing or professional awareness to give some space. You know what I mean? Like, if he'd have made the comments even after the final, even after the mistake, it's still valid. But the fact that he makes it before, it puts the club and the player on opposite sides right before their biggest game of the season. And absolutely.
And this making a mistake and being brilliant is something that he seems to do quite regularly.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I don't know. He's not. I wouldn't say he does quite regularly. He's got a clanger in him, but I mean, a lot of keepers do. But I think that being a keeper is such a hard job. Going to a cup final is such a hard thing, particularly as the underdogs like Frankfurt were. Everybody in that dressing room needs to be on the same page, inside, fighting the same fight. And it's just not helpful to have an agent sort of throwing his oar in, saying, this could be his last game for the club. You know what I mean? At a time when nobody needs it. It's fine to do it after the fact. It's fine to do it a week or 2 weeks before. But I don't know. I just thought the timing was really irksome. It really bugged me.
There was another Finnish footballer with a big game in the last week or so. Walter Viitala had a playoff game.
Yes, they drew on Wednesday, and tonight at 7 o'clock. So for those watching live, if you can find the stream, it's the Danish relegation playoff. Viborg play FC Horsens, Helsgårds, something that I can't pronounce. A win takes them or keeps them in the league. Since Vital has joined Viborg, he's played, I think, it's now like 12 games, and he's kept something in the region of, I think it's 5 clean sheets. And for Viborg, if you go back 5 more clean sheets before Vital, it goes back about a year and a half. So he's come in and he's absolutely massively shored up the defense, and he's stopped the leaks for goals. They're still not scoring enough, but he's got a huge game to keep his side in the Danish top flight this evening at 7.
Rich, in the last show, we talked about the Suomen Cup. In fact, I think we talked about it in the last 2 or 3 shows as the competition made its way towards the end. And we now know that the final in October in Seinäjoki will be SJK versus Huuhkajat, which after last Wednesday's results, it fills me with some trepidation. But the next Suomen Cup, this was something we talked about, was that the next season's Suomen Cup kicks off before the previous one actually has the final. The next cup starts in end of July. So what's the current state of play there with the Suomen Cup?
Well, I think I'll start by putting the caveat that obviously being English, we have a bit more love for a national cup competition than most other countries in the world. So looking at it from a slightly biased point of view, but the deadline for entrance into the next competition is on the 14th of June. As of today, the 4th of June, there are 5 teams who have entered the competition.
Who are those teams?
So you've got ROPS, who won it in 2013. You've also got Kapo, Nisnan, Halku, and Uletes from the lower reaches of the somewhat large pyramid. In the last 10 years, the numbers have dropped. The number of participating teams has dropped by 75%. In 2008, 361 teams entered the Solomon Cup. Last season, 91 did. Now, obviously, this is part of, there's several reasons for this. It's declined every year in that period as well. It ranges from the costs, the travel, the fact that, the infrastructure isn't necessarily built to cope with that system of, a lot of games will be played when players are on holiday. Most of them are amateurs. There's having to hire facilities to play indoor games because most of them are in the early rounds. And the fact that now it isn't an open draw like it used to be, albeit slightly regionalised. Now you go through 5 or 6 rounds to get 4 teams who then enter the group stage with teams from the higher division. So, essentially those, 60, 70 odd teams who entered the early rounds, the final for them was really getting through to that last 4. Needless to say, the system was so bent that one team got eliminated, then got reinstated because they did quite well in their league structure, and then went back in and got knocked out again. So, I'm sure, by the time the deadline is in a couple of weeks, there might be a reasonable number of teams. But, are we getting to a point where even a top division team might look at it and go, what's the point? It's hassle. You've got to sign players, especially those who are on contracts early, get them in. It is essentially a pre-season tournament as far as they're concerned. And even 4 or 5 years ago, there was the carrot of a Europa League second qualifying round place. Well, that's gone. The team gets through to the first round with everyone else. Invariably, the team that wins the cup will qualify through the league anyway. Whether that's the case this year with Huuhkajat and SJK, who knows? But it's an early dig there. But it's just a shame that, obviously, looking at it from our point of view, where there is a massive tradition of cup football, and looking at this cup changes format, and it doesn't seem to be doing anything. And how do you reinstate that love?
And if you look at, all the signs were there. If you look at, so we talked about 2 or 3 shows ago about Moorinen, who wasn't, I think he managed 1 game. The one game that he managed for Huuhkajat in the cup was the game they were already knocked out, because he missed the 3 previous ones. So there's clearly a guy who's thinking, okay, we're in the cup this time because it's the cup. But the way he acts, which is understandable, because they needed to do scouting, they needed to do preparations, he needed a break because he's 60 odd now, and Marlinen was the same. Marlinen wasn't there for the first couple of games at ROPS, and you think, well, if the cup's starting at a time when the managers and the coaches aren't there, or the scouting's not done, or the squad's not ready for the preseason, lower down the league, that means there's nobody it means there's 3 players on the squad list. Because when you get to Huuhkajat and Kakkonen, it's literally a case of okay, who's still with us this year? So I think it's just the timing of this one is it's all kind of wrong. This is now in June, this is the sort of time where you'd hope to have midweek fixtures for teams that have gotten off the ground in the league, that have gotten their training ready, who've got their players ready, that they want to give it a go. But if you start competing in January or December, it's just a waste of time. There's all your professional players need to be taking a rest. All of your staff need to be focused on building the squad or the facilities or the programs for the next season. So it's not like it's just a stupid time to have it's the off season. The off season for players and staff doesn't mean nothing happens. It means they're just focused on the preparation work for the next year. So it's
it wouldn't be such a bad idea if the smaller teams were playing at the kind of in the second half of the season to qualify for the next season's final stages, if you like. So instead of it starting in January, if it started now, because we talked also that there's this huge gap between the semi-finals, which were what 4-5 weeks ago,
start of April,
and was it that long? Was it 8 weeks?
It was April,
and the finals in October. So
SJK have gone through like 4 managers by then.
Yeah, the blows just keep coming, don't they? And it's not gonna stop yet.
But there was a good point that I was chatting to someone on Twitter about it, that there's also the Regions Cup, which is I'll say again with an English hat on, it's similar to the English Premier League Cup, whatever it's called now, the trophy, where the lower league teams compete. There's albeit an odd European place at the end of it it's basically for amateur teams, and it still results in a cup. They're playing peers, they're playing and the structure seems to work a lot better. They're playing sort of at the moment, there's various competition rounds going on, and that seems geared for lower division amateur teams. There's a tangible prize at the end of it, and they're not going to play the big teams, but there's a cup at the end, European place, and there is a little bit more hype around it than there was 5 years ago, because as the Swarman Cup numbers go down, entrance into that go up. So it's it's almost like having 2 competitions. They're virtually competing against each other rather than complementing.
And also that this idea of starting, even if it started with some games in April, having one game a month from April through till the end of the year, and building up with those knockout games, and having the semi-final a few weeks before the final takes place. I don't know. It just seems to me that way you're building up the excitement in the competition rather than tucking it away often inside these big barns in the middle of winter with a few hundred people that can get in there to watch if they can be bothered.
So that's something that I think the competitions of other countries in UEFA and FIFA are generally encouraged to have a cup competition, and it's almost like Finland are letting it die, before. But they've tried changing it. It really hasn't worked. Short of ripping it up and starting again, and even just going back to a plain knockout. That's better than what it is now.
It just seems to be like there's like a really simple answer, and I don't know why we're trying really hard to work around it. To have like multiple group stages and cups that start in January and all the rest of it. It was okay. It wasn't great, but it was fine the way it was. And I mean, and in fairness, you have to applaud people for trying. But if they run with a cup that has, I don't know, between 5 and let's say they even make 15 teams, then they've got to just hold their hands up and say, look, it's not going to work in 2018. We'll change it back. We tried it. Yeah, we stick your hands and say, look, okay, we dropped the ball here. Let's go back. Let's go back again. Because I mean, it's
turn it off and on again.
Turn it off and on again. The FFS way.
This is pretty much the way we get this show started every time we start recording. Mark, what about what final little bit of news later this week? We're gonna talk about the national team games later this week, and Friday is Liechtenstein, but the day before there's a Finland Legends game. What's this all about?
Yeah, so the Powerleague have organised. It's $5 a ticket in the €5 a ticket, I should say. Sorry, in the 5G Telia Sonera 5G Stadium. Is that what it's called now? Lord knows. In the
5G Super Thunderdome.
Yeah, in the 5G Super Duper insert sponsor name here, Thunderdome.com Stadium. There'll be a game.
Just for those of us that I don't quite get it, what did it used to be called? What might we know it as?
The Sonera Stadium, the Finnair Stadium, where Huuhkajat and Huuhkajat play their home games.
Yeah,
the one just down the road from the Olympic Stadium.
Yeah, okay.
So there's a Legends game between Finland and Estonia. So I think already signed up for Finland. It's basically like your classic end of 90s to early 2000 squad. So Jussi Jääskeläinen's there, Mikael Forsell, Gary Lippmanen's there, Petri Passanen's there. all of the kind of usual hitters. I think it's part of that Viro Suomi 100 thing that they're doing this year. But it's, I mean, €5 a ticket isn't bad. Most of the players are in their late 30s, early 40s, so it should be a decent intensity. Alexei Yeremenko, who's obviously still playing for Spartaks here in the Finnish 5th division or 4th division, he's signed up as well. So it'll be a decent game, and with a bit of, for those not quite ready to let go of how close we came under Hodgson, there's a reunion set up.
Okay, I think that just about wraps up the news with the
There's
talking
one-
of
I've
these.
got-
You got another last minute one. Of course you have. I forgot to ask.
It's more of a trivia question than a sort of last minute news item. So what are Mozambique, Lithuania, Mauritania, Guinea-Bissau, El Salvador, Kazakhstan, Nicaragua, Madagascar, and Estonia all have in common?
I got a feeling this might be linked to Rich's post during the week, and probably should have been covered in the news in itself. Are they all above Finland in the world rankings at the moment?
They are all above Finland in the world rankings at the moment. We are down to 108 in the world, which is what it is. There's not much we can do.
And they're going to almost certainly drop next month as well.
I think so. If they beat Liechtenstein, sorry, then we can go up a couple.
But
Because of the, like, I know we'll the points total will go up, but we need a lot of results to go our way. If we win both the games, we might get back into the top 100.
yeah, the Liechtenstein game is virtually worthless for points, but a draw versus Ukraine is worth 3 times the points of the win against Liechtenstein. So
that's true.
it's
yes.
and plus that would be taken over from a couple of positive results 4 years ago, which no longer count. So it's even more important. But yeah, who knows? They'll make up a new number.
We absolutely need wins though, because if we don't get anything from those games, we're gonna start sinking pretty sharpish, because back and well, the tail end of Miksu and back is time.
Okay, let's move on then before you get to slump down any further in your chair, Mark. We thought we'd talk about some of the Finnish players playing overseas and maybe how they're doing and looking at which ones maybe need a move. This is kind of the subject of your site, the FC Suomi site. Mark is keeping an eye on these Finns playing overseas. So where do you want to start?
Well, so I drew up a short list, and then it just kept sort of getting longer and longer and longer, because there's a lot of players out there that aren't getting the requisite minutes, or that have got the minutes but are sort of not really progressing anywhere. I think we know that, it's widely understood that Mika Ojala will come back from Germany, probably to a team in Finland, which is good because he was a young prospect, good winger. Tricky, pacey, got a lot of power in his boots. Actually, he's a decent finisher. But he went to VFR Aalen, and he's been there for about 2 or 3 years. I think his contract comes up, and he's going to come probably back to Finland. Thomas Lam, when you look at Thomas Lam and Notts Forest, he started off on fire. He played regularly. Then they changed managers to the guy who used to run Rangers, and since he's come in, he's gone for a pretty physical 4-4-2 approach, which means Lamb's not played. I think he's played 1 or 2 times in the last couple of months. So Forrest survived, which is good, but he needs to have a look around, because I think it's not Grayson, is it? Anyway, under the new guy,
Mark Warburton, is it?
Mark Warburton, that's the guy. Thanks very much. So under Warburton, I don't think he's going to get a lot of games, because Warburton likes defensive midfielders to be sort of Roy Keane-ish, sort of going through, not handling the ball, but going through people. It's a bit of a detriment to Roy Keane.
Well, his agent's Mina Raiola, so a move to Manchester United is almost certain for millions and millions.
It's on the cards.
Him and Pogba.
I think, he'd work well with the Pog, I think. But the guy who absolutely definitively, that in my opinion, needs a move this year is Berat Sadiq. If you can remember, you might remember 2 years ago that he was the guy giving Miksu Paatelainen loads of headaches because he was in Switzerland for FC Thun. He was scoring goals for fun. I think he finished 2 years ago. He finished the season in the Swiss League, 16 goals. He played as a target man, which was good fit. He had, in addition to 16 goals, he had something like 10, 12 assists. He helped Thun get to third in the league, qualify for the Europa League, and he basically had his pick of clubs across Europe at that sort of Europa League level to go to. He was 28. He's finally sort of got himself settled and stable and scoring goals, and they picked Krylia Sovetov in the Russian league. And 2 years later, he's played all in all something like 11 games. It's not easy to 100% get it accurate because stats on the Russian Cup are not always reliable. But he's played 11 games. He's not scored. He's not getting any game time. Sovetov are getting relegated, and he's in desperate need of a reboot to his career. He's only 30 now, but he's that absolute prime of his career, that sort of 28 to 30, when he should have been beasting defenders in whatever league or in the Europa League. He's 100% missed out on that in the last 2 years. So he needs to. I mean, probably he'll be looking at coming back to either Sweden or failing at the Finnish league, the Veikkausliiga.
What do we think about Joel Pohjanpalo?
Well, we discussed this during the week, and I think while he was the top goals per minute scorer in all the top 5 leagues this season, he had 6 goals, an average of about half an hour each goal, which if you look at it purely on the numbers, is incredible. It's better than Messi, Ronaldo, Suarez, all that lot.
There's one part of that stat that's a bit worrying, though, isn't there?
Yes, 1 star.
Yeah.
I mean, he's had a bit of a run of bad luck. He had a couple of injuries. Leverkusen did okay throughout the season, but they clearly struggled. They had Chicharito playing up front initially that was doing quite well, and he's almost developing this tag as an impact sub, which is quite hard to shake. And to be honest, that it's looking more like in his case, I don't think a move is really the best thing for him. It's not a vital thing. It looks like they're going to get the former Dortmund coach in as their new manager, Tuchel, and if he gets 100% fit and gets a run of games, then that's what he needs. It's not necessarily a transfer.
Chicharito is also on his way, so the P's leaving.
Yeah,
and it's quite often overlooked as well that one of the 6 goals that he got was the last minute equaliser against Hamburg, the one that essentially ensured that before the last day, Leverkusen wouldn't end up in the relegation fight. So it was very unlikely, but there was 2 or 3 different combinations of results that would have seen Leverkusen drop down into that relegation playoff place. And the penultimate game of the German league, he bagged the header that got the 2-2 draw that basically kept Leverkusen up. And I mean, Leverkusen going down would have been one of the biggest stories in Europe. So when he's come on and he's scored goals, he's grabbed a couple of important ones as well.
Who else? I can think of someone I'd like to see make a move.
You go.
Well, I think it may benefit both sides unless he gets a better offer. But Roope Riski, who last year scored 17 goals for ASIK, or maybe just over one every 2 games, or slightly better than one every 2 games, went to Paderborn in the German 2nd division, scored 1 in 10 games, and they just got relegated to the 3rd. So I think he went there hoping to put himself in the shop window. I'm not quite sure what shop window he might be in. I don't know if there's interest. I think his loan spell ends at the end of June. Could that be, or maybe at the beginning of June? And let's see. Maybe he did enough in those 10 games to warrant interest elsewhere. Whether that will be elsewhere higher up than the German second division, I don't know. But I know that his friends back in Seinäjoki could probably benefit from having him back out on the pitch. And we'll come to that, I'm sure, a bit more when we start talking about Veikkausliiga. But that might just be the boost that both parties need.
I think the problem for Paderborn is, so it was from the third league and now they've been relegated to the regional league, and that's going to smash their finances like apart. They were already a club that was, I think, borrowing against money they didn't have, because they were I think it was only 4 years ago that they were in the Bundesliga, and they've dropped like a stone since then. Ruppe played well when he was there. He played on the predominantly on the left wing as sort of part of a front three. The goal that he got was a tap in, but he had quick reactions. He's made a couple of goals for other people. But I mean, I don't know. I don't buy into this. There's a sort of feeling in Finland that the German third tier, or even second tier, well, second tier maybe not, but the German third tier is better than the Veikkausliiga. And I just don't buy into that at all. There's been tons of players that have gone to the German third division that either had to come back straight away or just didn't come back. You think about Tim Väyrynen, he's been out there now, 4 years, and he's bounced through clubs. He was at Dresden, he was at Victoria Köln, he was at Hansa Rostock this year. He gets games every now and again, not too much. The level isn't that much different than the Veikkausliiga, but German clubs have a huge reputation for developing German players, and I don't know. I don't see that there's anybody, for example, in the Bundesliga right now that used to play in the third division of German football. So I don't get really the thoughts behind it. So even if somebody else from the Kolmosliga or the Dry Liga comes in for him, I would suggest that he goes back to SJK, tries to do something in the European qualifiers, help SJK get towards any decent level of European competition, because in those games, in the playoff games, or if he gets to a group stage, touch wood, he'd be in a far bigger shop window to make a name for himself.
Anyone else, Rich? Anyone else you've got on your radar?
Well, I was saying to Mark before, I kind of keep an eye on the ones based in England purely because I'm here too. But you look at, say there isn't the plethora of Finns that there were certainly 15, 20 years ago, throughout the higher divisions. And there wasn't a single minute played in the Premier League by Finn this year. In the Championship, you had 4 goalkeepers on books of Championship clubs. Jesse Jorinen played 0 minutes in the league. Anssi Jakala played 0 minutes in the league. Nicky Mäenpää played 1 game for Brighton, who admittedly had a very good season. Jussi Jääskeläinen, 42 years young, played 9 games in the league for Wigan, who got relegated. He got released at the end of the season, and so did his son William, who's on the books at Bolton. So the 2 Jääskeläinens are competing for in the crowded goalkeeper market in northwest England. And it just goes to show that, yes, Finland have a reputation for producing good goalkeepers, but, while teams still look at buying a second choice, third choice goalkeeper, and, how we talked about Hradecky earlier on, Bayern were apparently interested in having him as a number 2. It's difficult. And, you want to, if you get an offer from Brighton or Fulham, big Championship clubs, and Brighton in the Premier League now, but, what do you do? Because it's genuinely a step up in money and infrastructure and everything around the club. And yet, Jesse Jorinen, who signed a new contract when he was just breaking into the first team, and then when this was 3 years ago under Felix Magath, that's how long we're talking. He played 5 or 6 games in a row, got injured. He signed a contract with an extension option at the end, which obviously they exercised at the start of last season. He's out of contract now, and yet they're talking about signing him up again, to play in League Cup games. I mean, he told me that he wanted to, play regularly, Championship level or similar abroad. But, it must be, people laugh at the easiest job in football is a third choice goalkeeper. So you go to a World Cup. You know, that sounds like my idea of heaven. But you know, it's difficult.
that might explain your football career.
Well, if Buffon can play, you know, I can still make it. But you know, you look at of all the Finns, and you know, obviously we're now spreading the net. The one with the most appearances in English leagues, or now last season, was Daniel Shaughnessy at Cheltenham.
Yeah.
And Cheltenham struggled. They were in the, I think, 4th or 5th bottom at the end of the season in League Two.
Mm-hmm.
He played 27 games. Remember Glenn Kamara, who used to
Yes.
maybe not quite the next big thing. He started one game for Colchester, also in League Two. Played a couple of games in the EFL Trophy, and I mean, I know I laughed when he made his Arsenal debut. He looked like a child. But you know, there were talks that FC20 or some Dutch clubs were after him. Never happened, and he looks like he may well be another one of these who, you know, shone brightly for a very brief period, and you know, he's not going to make it at Arsenal. I don't think he ever was. But you know, where's he going to go now? I mean, he was on the bench for a Finland game two summers ago, I think it was, along with O'Shaughnessy actually, and he couldn't be any further away now. So it's difficult, you know, from you know, an English point of view. And again, it's that tough decision. You move somewhere for minutes and hope you get along, or do you just wait it out? And you know, the young Finns, you know, the latest one who moved abroad was Patrick Vaitanen from FC Yaz, has signed for Liverpool this week. I think he's made a big thing of that announcement, like playing for Steven Gerrard's team that he's coaching. But you know, he was 15. He turned 16. Actually, he turned 16 next week, and already the hype around that is there's YouTube videos being retweeted from, like, you know, big accounts that follow Liverpool, watching him playing for FC as reserves, and look how great he is. He made this tackle. You know, 15-year-old could tackle anyone once, and this is what it is. You know, he's going to be on the books of Liverpool, probably get coached very well. And then in 5-6 years, who knows?
It's Nicky Mampar is the one that it's kind of crazy, because when he left Venlo, VVV Venlo for Brighton, so in the Dutch second tier, and the time that he left, he was basically on a par with Lucas Radetzky. So that's 3 years. He's been roughly 3 years at Brighton, and I think all in all, I don't know if he's got 10 games from his entire stint there. Probably not. And you think, well, that's look. Radetzky's a really good keeper, and he's done really well. But you know, I don't know. Would Venlo have gotten promoted? Would he have? How much would he have grown or improved as a keeper playing in the Dutch second tier? Or what other options were available? I don't know. But it's certainly not helped him. He's a player who's gone from being 26 to 29. So you're missing. This is like prime career time now to get minutes on the board and to get your experience levels up. And a lot of the players that we're getting are missing it. Jorinen now, was he 24?
Yeah.
So the days, if he signs again for Fulham, for what could potentially be one game when they stick out the stiffs in the League Cup, he's no longer a young keeper.
No.
You know what I mean? He's pro now. Like he gets no benefit of the doubt or anything like that. And I don't think he's got the minutes. So it's of course harsh if there's somebody who's willing to pay you. It's right there, but I don't know.
If you look at the Finland squad for the games coming up, you know, you've got Radetzky's number one keeper, and then the number 2 and 3 are Jorinen and Jakala.
Yeah.
You know, so Radetzky, yes, played very well in Bundesliga. Behind him, if he picks up an injury, you know, you've got good quality but very, very rusty players as backup. I think against Liechtenstein, it'd be a nice run out for one of them. But you know, Ukraine, it's come on.
No, but didn't he? Hang on, was it the Norway game? It was the Norway game, wasn't it? Last year when he hadn't played. He'd been out injured for ages and ages. He hadn't played for like a year, and then he missed a kick or something like that. Yeah. For one of the Norwegian goals, and that's just the kind of thing that happens when you haven't got games. And Nicky Mampar did the same thing against Estonia a year ago when they played in June. He hadn't played for again like for a year, and he got beaten at his near post by a ridiculous kind of cross. He just fumbled it in. So you make these kind of mistakes when you're not getting games, and it's. I mean, I love Antti Jaukola. You know what I mean? He's like he won cups in South Africa. You know, he won lifted trophies and the rest of it. So. It's just frustrating. They all need him.
As Rich mentioned, these upcoming internationals, maybe we can just gently move on to those. Are there any surprises in the squad that was named, Mark, for these upcoming games? Anything interesting caught your eye?
Walter Viitala's not in there, which is a bit of a shame. Like I said, he's been doing well in Denmark. Maybe it's because he's got other sort of more pressing things to deal with in the in his relegation fight. But it's good to see Valtteri Morin back in. He's been playing well. He's been getting games in Belgium now, and he's done pretty well. He's still not the quickest in the world, but he's a nice, big, strong fella. Mehmet Heitemai's call up to the national team is something that I've been waiting for the best part of 2 years. So I'm pretty happy for that. I think I'm really hopeful he gets, particularly against Liechtenstein, I really hope he gets some substantial minutes there to sort of show what he can do.
Is he going to be fit to play? I know he had a hand injury, did he?
He got subbed off in the smashing against Huuhkajat. But I think it's his hand, so I think they're going to just strap him up and throw him. I mean,
he played yesterday with some kind of protection on the.
So him and Mosa Yagubi representing the Veikkausliiga, that's really, really good. They're both well-earned call-ups, and Riku Riski is back. So there's always a Finland never take too many Riskis. Ruppe dropped out, Rico's back, but he's been scoring goals in the Norwegian top flight for odds. So we've got a couple of guys. So I mean, if you look at the front line, Pukki's in goal form, Riski's scoring goals. Kapp is okay. He doesn't get a lot of minutes. He scores every now and again. Pohjanpalo scores when he plays. There's and then Jensen. So there's a goal threat in the front line for Huuhkajat. So
if only there's that young Finn, was it Kimi Räikkönen, scored a hat-trick in the week in a charity match at Juventus. They weren't the most. They weren't the most well-taken goals, but to score a hat-trick at Juventus, it's for anyone is a good start. So,
he's renowned for his pace.
Yeah, good engine on him.
Quick off the starting blocks.
Yeah.
Hey. But I'm looking. I mean, it's a decent squad. Berpa Heitemai, he's only named 22, which is what he likes to do. He usually likes to leave a space open. Sakari Mattila's got he's got with a cruciate. He'll be out for a hell of a long time. And Mehmet Heitemai, Berpa Heitemai, sorry, he's out injured, and I think they're waiting on him on a couple of fitness tests to see if they can bring him back. But I would probably not do it because he's not played for like a month for Kievo.
Well, you mentioned Sakari Mattila. I just wanted to give a little shout out to somebody.
Go for it.
If I can find here we go. So I received a Facebook message a few weeks ago from now I can't find it. Not typical.
Fulham legend Sakari Mattila.
It was from how annoying. It was from someone over in Denmark who asked me to. He was telling me about Sakari Mattila's injury, and asked me if I could translate a sign that they were making, some small tifo that they were planning to show to him on the day. And of course, now that I want to find that name, I can't find it. But I asked him to send me a picture when they actually held the tifo up. So if that was you that wrote to me and you're listening to this, sorry I can't find your message, but thanks for reaching out to me through Explore Finland radio show. Good to hear from anyone that wants to get in touch outside of these shows,
or indeed make us a tifo.
Oh, that would be something, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
As long as they
FFS.
don't hold up something that says Wiltshire out, I would be very disappointed to follow in the footsteps of Arsene Wenger.
Or indeed Sika Borgström.
Yeah.
Who? Yeah.
Any. Well, at least you spelt it right. Thank you, Rich.
Yeah.
For those that are listening, Rich just held up a sign saying Wiltshire out to the camera, which was very kind. Maybe I'll use that for the image of for the thumbnail for the show.
What's for me?
So what do we feel for this? Liechtenstein will be a slightly more experimental team, and then the game against Ukraine will be a bit more back to fuller strength.
Yeah, I mean, so Liechtenstein they're gonna park the bus and try and us a point or a draw against us is good news for them, and they get a lot of points off us for that. So they're gonna put all their eggs in that basket. I think. I mean, I'm. This is probably the first time I've been optimistic, ever, because I think at the end of the ever, well, in the last 4 years, because at the end of the Austria game. And the friendly that we had, you could see the way Jensen's in and moving, the way Moshtag Yagubi had come in and done well. The fact that Teemu's been scoring goals, the fact that your Bojan Pablo's got a point to prove and is scoring goals, I'm really optimistic that we can get something, because these are the kind of teams that you would hope to smash. And I think we've got the tools to smash them this time.
These are one of the few teams that are below Finland in the world rankings.
Well, I mean, so we're 108th. I think there's 200.
Yeah, they're about halfway, aren't they?
Yeah, something like that. 200 and odd teams in total. So we're not like, it's not that bad.
But then
it's
on the BBC's World Football podcast, there was a feature on Liechtenstein this week, and they sound confident.
Do they?
Oh no! Are they in the midst of a Liechtenstein revolution, football revolution?
Yeah, well, they had no professional league and 7 teams, and the same cup team has won the cup. I think 19 years out of 20. So Baduz, yeah, who's playing the Swiss league. But yeah, so they sound confident, and based on recent form, worth a bet.
Oh yeah, way to build everyone up, Rich. I'll do my very best to get this show out before the Liechtenstein game, and that searing, insightful preview should be a must listen for everybody.
Absolutely. I think. Hey, the last thing to remember about those games is that the boats are open in Turku. The sun is out. 7 o'clock on a Wednesday night's a good time for a game. I'll be having some fun down in Turku town.
And then the follow-up game is what, on Sunday 11.
Sunday, yeah, in Tampere. Yeah.
Is that an early game or a late game?
That's 7 as well. I think it's an early evening game.
That's not bad.
Okay, so how about we move on to the kind of final subject for today of the Veikkausliiga so far. This is going to cause me great pain. But what about if we start with some positive stories from some of the other teams in the division? And what about, and this will pain me even more, but VPS Vasa are flying high. Seem to be building on the decent run that they had last year, the decent finish they had to the season last year, and qualifying for the Europa League places, and they've continued to build on top of that. Yeah,
I mean it's funny because they opened their season with a thumping at Huuhkajat as well, and yet since then they've beaten Huuhkajat at home. They're up to second, still have a negative goal difference as a result of that opening day defeat, and obviously the conceding 18 goals in 12 games is not what you'd expect from a team who, on paper anyway, look like Huuhkajat's closest rivals. But no, they've done well. I mean, they snuck into the Europa League at the last couple of games last season, so they've got that to look forward to in the new stadium. So yeah, I mean, I'd say they seem to be quite slow starters in the last couple of years, but no, they've done well. They look confident. Got some key players back, and old Morrissey up front seems to be banging them in. He got a hat trick a couple of weeks ago. He's one of their sort of players who just never seem to be fit, and they've got him fit. He's scoring goals. I think it's nice to see them. They haven't been too involved in the upper reaches over the last couple of years. So, yeah, good. Well done.
Yeah, and Seba Strandval as well is. I mean, yeah, he's back, getting back to form. I think when he came back last year, he didn't start that well, but sort of kind of grew into the season as it went on. And this year, he's kind of hit the road running. At least
I think when you talk about players scoring goals, then obviously Alfredo Morelos at Huuhkajat definitely deserves to mention. He's way ahead of the goal scoring table at the moment with 10 goals in 11 games so far, which is pretty good wherever you're playing. I think the next best is Alexei Kangaskolka at Mariehamn. He's got 6, and then there's a few players on 5 and more on 4, and so it goes down from there. So 10 out of 11 games is quite something.
Well, it's not bad. He did have a dry spell of 2 games without a goal, but in the game on Wednesday night, sorry to go back to that, but he got he got 2 goals and 3 assists in one game. And I would say we touched on this before the season. Huuhkajat did a cracking bit of business with him. They had him on loan last season from the team in Medellin, and they had the option to sign him for, I think it worked out about 500,000 euros, which is a lot of money. For them, but they're in the best place now. Is either they keep him and he will score goals, and as we've seen already, or come the summer transfer window, if he keeps doing it, what's to say that he won't move on somewhere else and they'll make certainly a lot more than $500,000. So I guess obviously they prefer to keep him, but it was a good bit of business.
He's one of those players that can make a difference in Europe. You know what I mean? He's one of those guys that will fit in, and if they get anywhere near the Europa League group stage, he's one of the guys who'll just fit in at that level. And so good luck to him. But it's still early, so the gap's still pretty tight. But I mean, I was at the Huuhkajat game, and they're going to take some stopping, some serious stopping. Huuhkajat, they're an absolute machine when they get going.
I think most of the predictions at the start of the season were that they would be the team to beat, and that shows no signs of stopping. And yet, after 11 games, no one's really running away with it yet. However good they've been so far, maybe they're coming into their stride, and that will that lead will get bigger and bigger. But they've drawn 4 games, so they're not as invincible as maybe SJK made them look last Wednesday.
I think they seem to struggle to break down sort of teams that will just
sit. Yeah.
Hifki and Lahti, they played for a point, they got a point. I mean, Hifki were dreadful everywhere other than in defence in that derby. They had absolutely no intention of going forward. I watched most of the game. I didn't remember them having a shot. And Huuhkajat tried, and I think most teams would have struggled to get a goal. But there is that potential there, and that's something for them to work on. But I suppose when they play 3/4 of their games, when the pace, the power, some of the direct running up front, and a bit of intelligence from Yugubi and Tanaka, that seems to be enough in most of their games to get them through. So they just need to develop that plan B and C. Just especially coming into it's 3.5 weeks now until the Europa League starts. So they need to get into
that rhythm. I think for me, though,
maybe they have a chance. Maybe they have. Obviously, they have more chance, but they have a good chance of in the Europa League of actually getting into those group stages and flying the Finnish flag.
Well, their seeding from their good run a couple of years ago obviously means that certainly in the first round they should get a favourable tie. After that, who knows? Because it's mostly the large Nordic teams, Eastern European teams. The way the Europa League structured is most of them already come in at round 1 as well. So at least they're seeded in that round. But I think you know, it'll be either them or Mariehamn purely by the fact that where they start in the competition means they have a decent chance of getting to the Europa League group stage anyway. But
and they're playing between now and then. They're playing Rops away, Yiiko at home, and then Kups away. So you know that's before playing Mariehamn at home. But still, a few games there to really get into some form and some form before going into the European games. Okay, how about we deal with the elephant in the room, which is the change, or more managerial turmoil at SJK. It's been awful. You used the word dreadful already, Rich. That's been one of my favourite words this year. It has been bad. I think I've kind of tried to be positive when we've been talking on Facebook or whatever over the weeks and months, and there were spells of really good football, and it just seemed, from being that close up to the action, you know, behind the goal that there were occasions where if it had just, you know, the football got into a good position and it just didn't quite fall. There wasn't that kind of rub of the green going the way of SJK. And I don't know if that started to drain confidence. I know we have one or two regular posters on the Facebook page being negative from the very beginning, and has now annoyingly been proven right, I guess. So
yeah.
Nothing I can say about that really. But after the HJK game, Sixten Bostrom was relieved of his duties at SJK and replaced by Jose Manuel Roca, Manuel, as he's generally referred to. And at first, this seemed like a bit of a bolt out of the blue. This is someone who is 41, played football mostly in the Spanish lower leagues, and then in the Greek and Cyprus lower leagues. And has managed in those same Greek and Cypriot lower leagues as well. So it seemed at first quite strange. Where has this guy come from to become manager of SJK? What I've since heard is that he was on the radar anyway, and had been approached to come. If you look at some of his tweets or some of the things he said in the press conference, he said about, I've been approached to come here in some capacity, which seemed strange to start with, but apparently was being lined up to come in as one of the assistant coaches, potentially with some future succession into a more controlling role. And that seems to have happened in the space of a week rather than the space of a couple of years, maybe. And it was said to me on the weekend or yesterday that it's kind of like light and day. The atmosphere around the club has changed almost overnight from what was happening beforehand, and that he's brought organisation, discipline, and enthusiasm to the club and to training. The fact that he's brought those things to the club implies to me that they may have been the things that were missing in the first place.
I was just going to say, yeah, the first two of those things, weren't they? I mean, you didn't need to bring enthusiasm because it was there after Valakari, but so wasn't Sixten brought in because of discipline? You know, and like wasn't that why he was brought in?
Well, that's what he said to me in the interview I did that went out as a separate podcast. Yeah. One thing that he said was about, you know, his organising of the team, and somebody else in the club sort of made the comment that the training plan that was much better organised once Siku came to the team, came to the club. So I don't know if there's been some breakdown in communication between management and the playing squad. I think that it's not just Bostrom that's left. There's a couple of other people who have left the club as well this week. And I think it was reported in one of the papers. This was told to me by somebody not directly connected to the club, but the coaching team weren't all at the training sessions every day. So hopefully Manuel will come in, and having the fact he's moved from Greece to Seinäjoki means that he'll be in Seinäjoki. He's not going to be commuting from some other town or city, and perhaps that's what's needed, is someone just to get much closer to the team. And I reached out to a couple of people today, and basically there's no, it's early days. He's, I think, had one training session over Thursday or Friday with the first team squad. Very difficult to get too much of a feel for somebody after one training session. But he himself said that he doesn't, this was in his press conference, and he was saying that he doesn't like this idea of always changing his way of playing to suit the opposing team. He wants to instill a way of playing throughout his team with some small tweaks to perhaps the tactics for certain games, but that other teams need to develop to deal with SJK rather than the other way around. And yeah, it was said to me that the players will have to learn what he wants and how he wants to do things. Every manager has his own way of defending and attacking and setting up their team, and that now they've got this international break to sort of try and get to grips with that and learn what he wants and start to put it into practice. So let's hope they're working hard starting tomorrow to turn things around, because it was the game yesterday against FC Inter. It ended in a 3-0 defeat for SJK, but I think the first half an hour or so there was some decent football. It wasn't quite connecting up front, so there was some nice play down the wings. The ball was getting into a position to be crossed or for that final pass, and that was where the whole thing kind of broke down. But it looked quite positive, and then and to be honest, if Inter had more than 4 or 5 shots yesterday, I'd be surprised. And yet they scored 3 goals. And when the first one went in, it was kind of against the run of play. And I dropped an F-bomb, and I was just with my daughter, and it completely slipped out, and she looked at me very disapprovingly. But it was a bit of a surprise to go behind there, and I think maybe that it just hit the confidence, and the second half never really looked like happening. And as the game wore on, I think I left with a couple of minutes to go so that we could get our bikes out of the bike rack and away from all that. And by the time I got home, I learned it was 3-0, not 2-0. So I guess something happened right at the end there that I missed. But
when we talked about Sexton earlier on, like 2 or 3 shows ago, we mentioned that SJK had lost the spine of his team. Like it had lost forwards, it lost Oyal at the back. And you said, I think at the time, that Mboma was the guy who was going to come in. Is he done? Is he?
I mean, he scored a few goals. At the moment, the highest scorer is Billy Irons with 4, and I think he got 3 of those in the first 2 games.
Yeah.
And Bomber's scored 3. But I don't think you can just blame him. You can't blame it on just that one person. He didn't play yesterday for whatever reason. I still think that for the past 2 seasons, the changes in the playing squad that have been made haven't worked. Like last season, there were huge changes, and then after half a season in the summer, a new defence was brought in. This year, a lot of players came in, and they came right at the start of the season. So Bergström started not long before the start of the season, and a lot of new players arrived after he did, and he's had 2 months or so. It's not a lot of time to get when you think of all the pre-season time that there is, from December through till end of March, to bring 7 or 8 players into the squad at the beginning of April and expect them to be just gel straight away, to me is unrealistic. But I don't know. As with Simo, there must be more. There must be stuff in the background that we don't know about. That's meant things haven't worked.
It's funny though. You just sort of think, 18 months ago they won the title. It's just hard to see, where it's gone. Was it obviously a lot going behind the scenes, as you say, and massive changes. The club seems to be growing and growing, and every year up until last year was an improvement in league position. So looking at how things have changed, of course they need to consolidate. They need to grow into the club, the big club that they are. But it's very unlike a Finnish team to be quite so trigger happy and give a manager 11 games.
Yeah, that's true. Hopefully now they've found someone. Clearly this is someone they wanted in the club anyway, and there must be connections between the sort of management, the board management of the club, and Spain or whatever to have identified this guy. Hopefully that means he'll be given time and some stability and can grow a team. And I think it was one thing. I think Elias Ade went out on loan previously, and he's now back. And he came on Saturday and got a nice cheer. He came on late or in the midway through the second half, and it was all over by then. And I don't really think that very much was created for him. But it was good to see him come back. Can we change subject?
Well, I mean, it's a sort of small change. But so you mentioned before that like Huuhkajat haven't broke totally free or like gone totally clear at itself. But if you look at the teams that you think could potentially keep pace with them for the rest of the season, we were all basically thinking, okay, Ilves, SJK, Mariehamn, or the other three, because you look at VPS and they look good, but they don't have a great deal of depth. You look at Inter Turku, they've got a lot of star power, but I guess they have that sort of management structure that's probably going to cost them a couple of points.
There's a general red mist around that club, isn't
it? Exactly. Yeah, something will go, and then that'll be like 5 games with no wins. So the guys who can keep a sustained challenge are all like 8, 9, 10 points behind Huuhkajat after 10 games or 11 games. So like in my opinion, so they haven't made a break from the league, but they've made a break definitely from the guys who I think could keep. I mean, Ilves they've lost 5 already.
Yeah,
it's crazy. So I can't see anybody catching them.
But then if Cups win today against Mariehamn, they're only a point behind Huuhkajat. So Cups. I think at the start of the season, it's funny.
No, it's good. I love how much you're behind Cups.
Yeah. I said at the start of the season I thought they'd do well, so we had an agreement. So.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed also, and you're right. I mean, if you look at the middle of the table, it's Mariehamn, Ilves, SJK, 6, 7, 8. They were 3, in the top 4 at the end of last season. So, but I noticed that Ilves crowds they're averaging over 3,000 for home games. Seinäjoki are way below. Probably averaging 2.5, maybe 2.6, 2.7 for home games, and that's probably on the back of season tickets sold because it doesn't felt that full. I don't know if last time I gave some kind of shout out to the HIFK fans for coming with 60, 70 supporters and making a real racket for the whole game. It was really good fun. But since then, I think I saw one person from Jyväskylä with a JJK scarf at the game. I think it was that game. There were a couple of guys in the bar from Rovaniemi who came down was standing in the bar behind the SJK goal, and I had a quick chat with them, and there were maybe 3 Inter fans the other day, but there's not many Seinäjoki people. I don't think. My personal feeling is there's not many Seinäjoki fans there either, and I'm sure partly it's because, and you won't appreciate this, Rich, but it's really cold over here still. I mean, it was +1 on Friday. I think yesterday evening it was like +5 or 6. It's June, for goodness sake.
It was snowing over half the country. June 1st, half the country was covered in snow.
Yeah, it's just madness. So it's not really conducive to wanting to stand out in the cold to watch a team that's misfiring, not playing well. I think if the team playing well can get people more interested in going, but if you're not really that into it, then well, it's cold and they're playing badly. Maybe we'll give it a miss this week. So it would be good to see the Oma Aspe Stadion a bit fuller than it has been. I don't know.
Well,
maybe we need a few wins first.
We're talking about attendances yesterday in Huuhkajat at the OPS Oulu game, 157 in the second tier. Obviously, they lost to TPS. But yeah, 157 in the second division. It's difficult.
Yeah, that being said, I went to see Losa for Spartaks when our Footwater Porvo played in Helsinki, and there was a good couple of people. I mean, they were all basically looking to see how fit Losa was, which I don't know. No comment. Yeah. But
Is he fit enough for the Legends game, Mark?
He was huffing and puffing, I'll tell you.
There's hope for me.
He had a couple of good touches. He was brilliant on the ball, but after about, I think it was pretty much the second half. I don't know if he'd had like a pint and a pack of fags at half time, but he came out the second half and he could barely move. Yeah,
I have to say that a month or so ago when SJK played Yiiko, but after about 75 minutes, some of their players had hands on knees, and seemed to be finding it really, really tough. Maybe that's just making the step up to Veikkausliiga, and of course SJK managed to smash them 1-0. Which exactly, yeah. It was nice to get a win, but it wasn't convincing against a team that were also huffing and puffing. We're over the hour, as always. We've now been talking for 1 hour and 12 minutes. So anything else you want to add to the Veikkausliiga part?
I think just looking at Huuhkajat again, there's already a gap starting to form at the top, and it's Honka and Kokkola who are leading the way. Honka are slightly more structured than some of the clubs at that level, but you look at the start of the season, Yarrow, TPS were generally seen as more favoured, and Honka have come in and torn it up. They've got 9 goals in the last 2 games. 17 points from 7 games, and that was a 3rd division promotion playoff a couple of years ago. And those 2 teams are looking at early days anyway, favourites to get up.
Kokkola had a really good end to last season, didn't they? They were sorry, it was in the Suomen Cup that they had a really good run. So they clearly built on that.
Didn't Honka get to the semis in the Suomen Cup this year?
Yes, they did. Yeah. They played Hoiko.
Yeah. So I think they'll be back. I hope
someone else to add into this Pohjanmaa mini liga that gets everyone excited when there's more than 2 teams in the Veikkausliiga.
Cool.
Okay, I think that just about wraps it up. Thanks everyone for listening. If you're on the podcast, if you're watching live, it seems there's a few people been watching us live. They've been silent viewers, but you're always good to have you there. Just a reminder of our 3 websites. So there's Mark's FC Suomi with regular reports on Huuhkajat players around the world, and most recent articles seem to be looking towards those upcoming internationals, Mark.
Yep, there'll be a preview. Well, there'll be a review of the weekend because there's still a couple of guys in action, and then a preview for the Liechtenstein game this week.
Yeah. And Escape to Suomi, the most recent article on there is also by Mark.
By Mark.
You seem to be everywhere. I might have to get you to write something for me as well, Mark. What was Rich? Tell us what Mark had to say.
It was about Jere Unen, actually, and we did talk. Sort of Mark is saying he's going to contribute a couple more bits that perhaps more in keeping with my tone than his sort of FC Suomi. So it was a lot more opinion based than some of his own stuff. But something I've been honestly working on, is putting it a bit mildly, but helping out with Vize's site and football.net. There's a lot of old archive stuff. So basically, some chaps from the RSSF that compile all the facts and figures, are basically putting together a full encyclopedia of all sort of national team results, league results, going down to the 7th division of all the regional leagues. And quite, it might come in handy for a pub quiz or something. But this chap Rick has done 99.9% of the work, and I've just help that a little bit, but that's live, and yeah, get involved.
Where is it live, Rich?
It's at www.finlandfootball.net.
Yeah, okay, I have seen that. Finlandfootball.net. Okay, it's important. It's important stuff. Yeah. I've seen the guys on Facebook there as well. There's been some interesting bits and pieces. Very professional. Always remember to silence your phone. I'll end there by just saying that I've recently been asked to contribute to a new blog, actually for the visit seinäjoki.fi/en for English. So I'm going to be writing a monthly blog about life in Finland, based on the kind of the Explore Finland radio show that I recorded, and talking about life in Finland and pointing out a few bits and pieces for people to do in Seinäjoki. So, Rich, when you're over in Finland this summer, if you find your way up here, do your homework first, find something interesting to do on, visit seinäjoki.fi, and
looking for some lower league football to break up the visit to the father-in-law.
I'm sure you'll find plenty around here. Remember, subscribe to the YouTube channel, search for my name, Mark Wiltshire, or search for Finnish Football Show. We'll get this podcast out in a few days. And until Finnish Football Show 16, thanks very much. Good to hear from you all. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.